Hello, I'm back. This time we are learning the second approach of clustering. So in this case, we are learning what we call hierarchical clustering. The name hierarchical means level by level. And for this type of clustering, we are trying to find the most similar member to the current member of the focus. Then we create the record keeping data visual called a dendrogram to keep track of who's the next similar to the current items. Then we keep growing into the bigger subgroup. So at the end, we will have a complete dendrogram to keep track of all the sequence from one single individual data point into a one complete cluster of having all members together. So the key thing in this type of clustering, there are 4 options to apply, like single link, complete link, average link, and centroid option. But today I hope to focus first on the single link, and possible there might be additional clip on the complete link. So to do so, first let's look what we will cover about hierarchical clustering. The main mind map of hierarchical clustering is that we are focusing the first part. We want to look into the overview, which I briefly introduced. In order to know more about hierarchical clustering, 2 ideas will be introduced to you. One is the dendrogram and the distance matrix. Then later on, we will continue to one representative of the option of hierarchical clustering called single link. And if time permitted, we possible can do one more type of the subtype of hierarchical clustering called complete link. So let's look at the overview first. Okay. The hierarchical clustering, the strategy is that the algorithm try to keep track of which data item is the next similar item by finding the smallest distance on the distance metric among a pair of data members. And then the algorithm continue to grow the visualization called dendrogram. And in this case, let's look at the dendrogram. For example, in this dendrogram, there is an example of the dendrogram in several colors. Okay, you can see that for the dendrogram, for the 2 most similar members, we locate with the shortest height or shortest vertical bar, which in this example were these 2 members, 3 and 2. So you can see that the most, in this case, the most highest vertical height instead is this member pair, the blue. You can see that the height is there. So that represents the longest vertical height or vertical bar, which means it represents the last 2 final subgroup. Merging of last 2 subgroup. Where at the same time, if you look at this first shortest vertical bar, it means 3 and 2, 3 merge with 2 first. Also, the implication for any other height, for example, if this height means it's a lot taller than this height. So that means 8 and 7 merge first. Merge before the item 9, before 9. So you can see that the vertical bar do tell the order of the merging with the next most similar members of the data item. So therefore, in the hierarchical clustering, the algorithm keep trying to perform these repetitive merge. So while the algorithm progress, the new subgroup are created and emerging, and as well as we have to update the new subgroup or also update distance metric. Let's look at what distance metric is. One more example. Okay. Distance metric is just the pre-calculated distance between any order pair of data items. Okay, for example, in this cell, it's the cross of row C and column E. So this represents the distance of CE, which also equal to the distance of E and C. So that's why the whole thing is symmetrical. So you often see that they would show only the top right half. No need to show the complete repetitive bottom left half. So that's how we will see the distance metric in reality. And also notice that all the diagonal members are 0. That's because it represents the distance of data item to itself. For example, this is the distance of D and D, so equal to distance of this is E and E, or equal to distance of F and F, which of them equal to 0 because it's the distance to itself. So during the hierarchical clustering, we will update this data of distance metric because we start to have the merging and the individual members become intermediate subgroup along the algorithm until we complete. So let's look at one representative major clustering called single link. To perform variety of hierarchical clustering, there are options you can choose. Okay, so in order to do that, what are these options affect? It affects the definition, how you define the distance between two subgroups. In this case, let's look at single link. The single link defined as the mean distance pair. Between two subgroups. So you can see that in this case, the minimum distance pair here. So in this case, single link will use CE, distance of CE, to be representative of single link. And similarly, complete link has another interpretation. Complete link take the maximum distance pair. Okay. between two subgroups. So from this tiny data set, the maximum distance pair tend to be the distance between H and F. So in this case is the D of H and F. And you guess it, for the average length. For the average length, it's the representative is the average of 15 distance pair. In this example, there are 15 pairs possible. And for the centroid option, in this case, the name implies centroid. So first, let's try to find centroid of cluster. If I call that C1, and this another centroid, if I call that C2. So in the case of centroid, we would use the distance of C1, C2 to represent how far the cluster C1 from the cluster C2, which is this distance. Okay. Alright, so these are just 4 different definitions. So we'll come back to the first example with the single link. Alright, again, just a reminder, the single link used mean distance as representative. So the algorithm of hierarchical clustering, regardless of those 4 options, regardless of any of the single link, complete link, average link, centroid, it will always look for the smallest distance on the latest distance metric. So in this example, the smallest distance is here, A and C. Okay, A and C. So in this case, we can start to first draw the most updated dendrogram. That is now A merged with C. And with this, it means we are updating the distance metric into A and C together, B, D, E, F. Okay, same thing. This will be AC, B, D, E, F. So we are updating these distance metric. But the data cell that we update, only the cell that has effect by A and C. So before we update anything, first let's fill the diagonal with 0. For anything that hasn't touched A or C, we use the same data of distance before. So you can see that BD, you can copy the value 3, BE, you can copy 10, and BF was 16, DE was 20, and DF is 11, and EF was 18. But now the first row, we have a lot to update. So the update of this cell, for example, this cell come from the minimum of A, B, and CB, or I shall write BC, either way. But let's look at AB was 5 from the first table, and BC was 6, so that means the update value was 5. Now let's look at this cell. AC and D. So that's the minimum of AD, which was 7, and CD was 12. So the winner is the minimum, suppose 7. Now let's look at this cell AE and CE. AE was 15 and CE was 8. So the minimum of them was 8. And the last cell is the update of AF and CF. So AF minimum first was 9, but CF was 14. So the minimum was 9. Okay, so that's the update distance metric. So the next phase, keep going just like we did before. So let's look at the next possible merge. Locate the smallest one on the latest distance metric between subclusters. So we locate the 3. So that means we update the distance metric. So that is step 1. That means we start to have B and D merging. So we still have the AC merge before, but B and D merge later. So in that case, the vertical bar is higher than what was done to A and C. So now we're gonna update the distance metric. So now B will be next to D together. So let's draw it again. AC, BD, and EF. Similarly, on the vertical, AC, BD, E, and F. Again, the vertical always 0 to itself. And then let's fill the cell that has nothing to do with AC and BD. So in this case, EF can be copied directly to be 18. Okay. So now, for example, this cell, okay, is the minimum of, for example, BE. BE was 10 and DE. DE was 20. Okay, for example, so we'll update with 10. And if we do everything, we'll got the update to be 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 18. Okay. So again, the next step, the hierarchical clustering, look for the smallest merge of the smallest distance in the latest update distance metric. So the next merge is at this position of 5. So now we can update the dendrogram to be step so you can see that it implies row AC merge with column BD. So that means A, C, B, D, and now we merge. So we have to update the distance metric one more time. So now ACBD will be drawn together, and then E and F again, A, B, C, D, and E and F. Okay, diagonal 0. And E and F hasn't touched any new chain, so the value of the existing 18 can be copied down, but we have to update the 2 on the upper right. Okay, so the update of this cell is the minimum of AE, BE, AE, BE, CE, and DE. So let's look. AE was 15. Okay, 15. BE was 10. So far 10 is smaller. How about CE? CE was 8, so CE was even smaller. And how about DE? DE was 20, so the smallest was 8. And similar idea go to the cell F. So the update will be 9. Okay. Again, the next phase, the algorithm will look into the smallest value on the latest update distance metric. So if we draw the dendrogram, so that means the big group is merging with E. So we can draw like A, C, B, D merge, and A and C merge with B, D, and now they merge with E. This send into the update of almost final distance metric. So the last step. Okay, so we will have the merging of A, B, C, D, E, or either you can say A, C, B, D, E, and then F by itself. And this one has A, B, C, D, E. And this one update to the value of 9. Okay, but it can be clearly seen that the last pair of subgroup, last 2 subgroup, there is no way but to merge F into the big group. So that means step 4, you would have A, C, B, D, these 2 subgroups merge together, then merge with E, then the final merge was with F. Okay. No more single element, so this and the single link clustering, and you can call this the final dendrogram. And once we have this dendrogram, we can make use. For example, if you need to use k equal to 2, you would act like you would project horizontal light, and in this case into those vertical bar, and you would hit it 2 spots here. So that means we are having one group of F by itself, and another group was A, C, B, D, E. At the same time, if we want 4 cluster, you can see that these are the location where we hit 4 spots. If we shine the light from the right hand side toward perpendicular toward the vertical bar. So we got these 4. So that means if k equal to 4, we would have 4 subgroup which has AC together. Another subgroup was BD, and then we have E and F by itself. Okay, so that's how you would use the single link hierarchical clustering. Thank you.